Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I want to introduce myself first. My name is Ed Werner, and I'm the Lighthouse Keeper. From the lighthouse you're going to visit when we get through here. I'm not the only Lighthouse Keeper that we have. We have a committee. We all take turns, and we all have things to do at the lighthouse. Today I've got the duty, so I'm lucky enough that I get to teach the class today. So, what we're going to do is learn about lighthouses. And when we get done, we got some surprises for you. And then we're going to go up to the lighthouse, and everybody's going to get a chance to go inside the lighthouse and see what it looks like inside a real lighthouse. Not too bad, huh? Okay. Really happy to have you here. You're at the Water's Edge restaurant that's here at the Kenosha Yacht Club. And the Yacht Club, of course, has a lot of boats associated with it, and they go in and out of the harbor. Well, over the years, it became very important to have a lighthouse so the people in the boats and the ships could find the harbor. So, today I understand that your big thing is the letter L. Right? This is what we're learning. Now, you can use the letter L for a lot of words, but of course you're down in my territory now, so the letter L for me stands for lighthouse. Well, that's kind of bland-looking letter, really, but let's make it more interesting, all right? Well, we look at the letter L here, and I'm going to draw a line down here. There we are. We got 2 blocks. That's not too impressive yet, is it? But I'll tell you what. Let's put a door right here, and we'll put a little handle so you can open the doors. Now we got the door that we can get into this block. Not too bad. Kind of dark in there, so we're going to have a window. There, now we lighten it up a little bit. As we go up inside this part of the lighthouse, we'll put a window over here so you can see. You go up higher and put another window up here. And when we get to the top, we got a window where you can look out. Now the keepers used to look out and see what the weather was up there. But when you get to the top, that's as far as you could go. So that's hardly a lighthouse yet. So we put a hatch there, which is a hole in the roof up there on the gallery deck. And we built this little house up here. There's the roof. And put it like that. We'll put some lines down there so we got windows. Well, the lighthouse keeper sometimes had to go out and clean the windows on the outside. We don't want to lose our lighthouse keeper. So we put a little fence around up here. Not too shabby. So we got a lighthouse. Now when the lighthouse keeper gets up here, the big thing inside is a lens where the light is. Hey. Now, in the old days, he had to use oil to light the light, so he had a fire up there. And of course, the light would go out over the lake. Not too bad. So we got a lighthouse. However, not just having a lighthouse, you got to have a place for the lighthouse keeper to live, right? He's got to have a house and his family. So let's use this part of the L. I'm going to put a roof here, put a door, put a window so you can look out of. Chimney, got to have some heat in the wintertime. Got a lighthouse keeper's house. Sure don't look like the letter L anymore, does it? No. Yeah, okay. But that's still kind of bleak. So, what we have to do, what's your name?
Alex.
Alex? Alex. Let's make this lighthouse more friendly, people-friendly. So we're going to take this little girl by the name of Alex. She goes up into this window. And how many fingers you got on your hand there? 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's Alex waving to you. She's a lighthouse keeper. How about that, huh? We'll put a big smile on her. Okay. There. Let's see her hair. Okay, well, we'll just make a mess on her. She had that cap on. Okay. Well, now we got a lighthouse. Looks pretty good. Okay. Well, What happened was before we had the lighthouse, there was no lighthouses here. It was just the harbor was going out into the lake. It was just a river. So boats sailing up and down bringing settlers here in the early days couldn't find the harbor because there was no harbor. So what the settlers did was hire a little boy, and they gave him a red flag, and whenever somebody in the town here, the little village, would see a vessel coming close with settlers or something, they'd send him down to the beach, and he'd wave this red flag. So the people on the boat could say, oh, there's somebody on the beach. This must be where Southport is, which was the name of Kenosha before it became Kenosha. I think he liked the job because he's smiling. Probably because he got out of school. All right? So that's how we started. Then at night, they'd build a bonfire on the beach. But that was so low, it was hard to see. Well, that was the big problem, was how in the world do you find this harbor, particularly at night? So the little boy with the flag didn't do too good if it was dark. So the fathers of the little town went down to the beach, and it was all trees. This was all like a forest. So they saw this big oak tree. This is my idea of an oak tree. Well, you've probably seen better pictures of oak trees, but to me this is an oak tree. No birds in this one. So they went down and they looked at this big oak tree down there. It was standing so very high, and they said, well, let's make a beacon out of that tree. So what did they do? They went down, they cut the top of the tree off. Nice and straight. That's because I had a ruler do it. So they had this big stump. It was about 10 feet high, which was higher than about as high as this ceiling. They climbed up there, and what they did was get some big flat stones, and they put big flat stones up here. So they had a nice base. Then they put logs, wooden logs up here. Then every night, somebody from the town would go down there, climb up on that ladder, and make a fire. That was our first lighthouse. Kind of crude, but it worked. Now, I have no idea how many trees they burned down by trying to have this lighthouse. But that's the way it all started. Well, they finally got the harbor going. They said, we got to have a better looking lighthouse than that. So they built this one. Now this one was 24 feet high, about twice the size of this roof of this building. They'd have to climb a ladder every night. And inside, they'd put a lantern, and they would have a fire in the lantern, because there was no electricity in those days. And the fire would burn, and would throw out a beam, so the ships sailing by could find the town. Well, that worked pretty good for a number of years. So things are going pretty good. Finally, the government says, we're going to build a lighthouse here, which they did. And that's the lighthouse you're going to visit a little later. Now, everything was going along fine. Kenosha now had their lighthouse. So let's take a look at what a lighthouse kind of looks like. I have a sample here. Kind of a plain little thing. It was painted white at one time. Here's the lantern room up on the top. Keepers' houses on either side. So that worked pretty good. But I'm going to move this out of the way. Get this out of the way here. Mary Jane, could you grab that, please? Okay. Got her? Okay. So, we had a lighthouse. Wasn't too bad. Well, right up the lake, there was another community like Kenosha, and they said, hey, we got a harbor, and we got to have a lighthouse. So, they made a lighthouse. They built one. Problem was, it looked an awful lot like the lighthouse that we had here. So a ship sailing by would say, is that Kenosha or is that Racine? Where are we? They didn't have all the navigation aids we have today. So they couldn't tell the two apart. So people up the community says, okay, we got a white lighthouse. We'll put a black band around ours. Now you can tell the three lighthouses apart. Well, that worked pretty good. You sure can tell that lighthouse. Up the lake again, these people said, well, we want you to see our lighthouse. So they took the black paint and they painted it a little different. So now you can really tell the difference between the lighthouses. kept on going, and these people said, hey, we're going to make a fancy lighthouse. Boy, look at that one. So they made one with stripes on it. Not too shabby. People up farther up the lake says, pretty good. But they're all black paint. What are we going to do? We can't make another black paint one. What are we going to do? So they got red paint. And they painted a red band on their lighthouse. So you can tell the difference. Next one, they said, hey, we like the color red too. But we can't make it the same. So they made a couple of bands. Pretty nice. The next one, they said, wait, we can outdo you. And look at the lighthouse they made. Boy, you could sure tell the difference in those lighthouses. Right? No, I'm telling you. Now we ran into a problem. Lighthouses like this are built on low flat ground because you need the lighthouse nice and high so the lights shine over the lake. But up in northern Wisconsin, there are big cliffs up there. Well, you don't need a lighthouse that big because it would be up in the clouds practically. So they said, well, we got to have a lighthouse that's the same height as these, but we don't need a big tall one like that. And we also need a place for the lighthouse keepers to live. Voila! They put a lighthouse right in your house. Now you imagine going to bed and the lighthouse is right next to your bedroom? Sure, staircase going right up. Here's how the keeper got in, and you come up. So they had lighthouses that were made out of houses. How about that, huh? Now, we ran into another problem. We've identified our lighthouse. During the daylight, you could see the lighthouses, what we call a day marker. But what about at night? Well, we had to light the lighthouse. In the early days, we didn't have electricity. They had oil lamps. A lamp something like this, only a lot bigger. I believe they studied Abby Burgess. Yeah, I meant to bring my Abby. I studied Abby Burgess too. Well, she had to go and have a lantern like this, only a much bigger. And she had to go up in the tower, like all the lighthouse keepers did, and light the light. It was made out of, the light was used by using oil. The first oil they used was oil from the blubber of a whale. So now you had to catch the whale, kill the whale, get the blubber out of it, squeeze the blubber and get the oil. Problem with that oil was it stunk bad. You don't know what smells bad until you've seen a whale that's been blubberized. Believe me, they smell bad. I'm an old sailor, I can tell you. Okay, so she'd go up, little Abby Burgess would go up, for example, and her job was to light the light. Well, okay, we got a flame, but you see it gets smoky, so that didn't work too good. So they came up and they said, well, what we're going to have to do, this blubber is bad, it smells bad. So what they got was called lard oil. It looks like butter, has a kind of consistency of butter. Probably don't see much lard anymore, but years ago, ladies used to do it for a lot of cooking. The trouble with the lard was you had to heat it so it would flow. By the time you got up to the top of the tower on a cold winter night, it'd start to get thick again. So you'd have to run back down, heat it up again. So that didn't work too good. Finally, they came up with what they call mineral oil, which we know today is kerosene. That worked pretty good. But that wasn't much of a light. So they said, there's got to be a better way of having light. We could turn the wick up, but then we get more smoke. So they said, there's a better way of doing it. So they came up with this idea with the chimney, and watch how the light changes. If I can get that on there right. I got it. Now look how bright it can be. Hey, we got a bright light. And they can see that out in the lake. Pretty snazzy, huh? So we got a nice bright light now. Lighthouse keeper had to take care of it. He had to put more oil in it. He had to clean the wick. He had to make sure the chimneys were clean. A lot of work. Well, over the years, we did get electricity and electric lights. But the problem with this was we couldn't get the light out far enough in the lake. So they came up with an idea like this. We're using this lantern. Now this is like a flashlight, but theirs was a great big one. And they came with this electric light now, and the keeper would turn it on, I hope, as soon as I find where the switch is. There it is. Now, yeah. See, now they got a reflector in the back, and it concentrates the light. So, look, we can throw a beam out over the lake. So, the lighthouse keeper used to wind the hand crank up, and this light would start to turn around the lighthouse, and it'd flash out over the lake. It'd go around, it'd be dark, it'd flash over the lake, and that's how you could tell the different lighthouses. So that worked out pretty good. Now we ran into another problem, though. And that problem was, I'll just blow this out. What do we do if we get a problem that all sailors fear? Been there. Let me tell you, sailors fear this worse than anything. Heavy seas, nothing. Fog. Fog can come in during the day, and fog can come in at night. If fog comes in, you can't see the lighthouse. So, what good are the different colors of the lighthouse? You can't see them. At night, the fog comes in, you can't even see the light. How do we keep a ship from going up on the rocks in a fog? Aha, somebody know?
Foghorn.
Foghorn, you're right. The first time they tried it out, they used a cannon. Big cannon. But that was dangerous because they had to use gunpowder. So they fire a cannon off, but that was pretty bad. So they said, that's no good. So then they'd take, by the house, they'd put a bell, like a big school bell or a church bell, bigger than this one, but the same effect. And they had a lanyard on it, and the keeper would, here we go, all night long with the fog. The ships could hear that. All night long. Oh boy. Imagine sleeping in the bedroom and listening to that. Well, so, as my young friend here said, they had to come up with something better. So they developed an engine, and this engine made compressed air. And they put the compressed air in a tank. Now this is a miniature of it. And you got a little bell on here, and this is what is called a foghorn. We've got one out on the end of the pier. Okay, I suggest hold your ears. Everybody ready? I caught you that time. Okay, now, believe me, I've been on a lighthouse when the foghorn blows. It'll take you right out of bed if there's enough. Boy, it's bad, let me tell you. But that's how we solved it. And that's how lighthouses got to be. Okay, now what I'm going to do, we got some surprises for you. I think what we're going to do is give you your first surprise now while you're still here. So Mary Jane, would you pass out our first surprise? We had special people spent one whole evening making a special cookie just for you. It's a lighthouse cookie, naturally. So we'd like everybody to have a lighthouse cookie.
Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
They don't have any peanut butter on it, do they?
No, no.
I like peanut butter.
But there is frosting if you're watching your weight. Okay, has anybody got any questions on what we covered? You got a question? No? Okay. All right. I'm not through with you yet. This is for your teacher, Mrs. McBride. And I'm going to... Where is she?
What year was the first lighthouse built in the Kenosha area?
The lighthouse, the first real lighthouse the government put up was 1848. It lasted 8 years, and it wasn't built on a good foundation, because in those days you had to have a good base, and it cracked. In those days the government tried to do anything as cheap as they could. Does that sound familiar? So that cracked. So in 1858, they built another lighthouse. And that one only lasted 8 years and it cracked, started to fall apart. So they built the third one in 1866, which is still standing up on the hill. That's the one we're going to visit. Been there 134 years.
Wow.
Okay, now, what we're going to do here, I'm going to give this to the Mrs. McBride. This is for her. Oh, I'm sorry, McBain. I'm sorry. Okay. I don't know. Is this going to be your teacher's, whether she wants to do this or not? But here's a test. And it's going to be up to her when you get back to your classroom. See if you can pass that test. It'll be up to her. Now, another surprise. I'm going to give this to your teacher too. I don't have any cranes here. But you've seen all these lighthouses. When you go back to school, you can have a drawing, and you color the lighthouse the way you think you'd like to see it colored, or which one you like the best. That's for you. Well, there, you can put that in here. Okay, everybody's got a cookie. Okay. Well, on behalf of the Water's Edge Restaurant and the Kenosha Yacht Club, let's use their room up here so that you can have this little program. What I'd like to do now, when you finish your cookie, we'll put our coats on and go back into the cars. And I'd like to have the drivers very carefully, because we got construction across the street, get in line, go up the hill, and park in front of the lighthouse behind each other. The first car park right by the sign. You can read the sign. I'll open up the lighthouse, and one by car, you kids can run up to the lighthouse, look inside, run back to your car, take off to school. Maybe that's not the best part, going back to school, but you're not going to get the day off, I'm sure. Okay, so we'll finish that. Put your coats on. And I want to thank you for coming. We enjoyed having you. And I hope you enjoyed it. Well, I want to thank the kindergarten class for coming down to the Water's Edge restaurant at the Yacht Club, where we learned all about the letter L. I certainly enjoyed talking to you and having the session, and I guess we pretty well covered the topic. I feel very fortunate to be a part of this program, but what I was really wondering about is, what if I would have been asked to do the letter A rather than L? What could I have talked about the letter A? I wonder. Everybody ready?